Apart from being an Oscar-winning movie star, George Clooney is a highly respected film director. His latest outing behind the camera is The Tender Bar, a coming-of-age tale about a boy growing up in small-town America during the 1970s and 80s. His father's walked out on his mother, and so the boy is taken under the wing of his Uncle Charlie, a bartender played brilliantly by Ben Affleck. When I caught up with George Clooney, I began asking him what attracted him to this particular story and why it was so personally important to him in recent times.
We, as part of the human race, have been rather tough on one another for the last year and a half, or probably the last 5 or 6 years. And this was a really kind film.
It is.
It was gentle, and I needed that. And I felt like if I needed that, maybe other people might feel the same way.
Dear Mr. McGuire, it is a great pleasure to inform you that the admissions committee has voted to offer you a place in the Yale class of 1986.
What?
I'm also pleased to notify you that your financial need has been met.
If you're tricking me, I'll kill you.
Read it.
It feels, it's all sorts of things, but it's a nostalgic film for a kind of better America. Yeah. And it's an America where there are no iPhones, there are no tablets, there's none of that stuff. People are still focused on books. Mm-hmm. And to a certain extent, it seems to be a kind of hymn to what you would call the middle class, we call the working class.
Sure. Yeah, well, it is. In fact, there was I think it's closer to, we would call it the working class there too, because they're struggling to get to the middle class, because there is a bit of class that plays out in this. There's a little bit of the have and haves not. There's a line in it where he says the real rich hide so people don't kill them, which is actually true. But there is a nostalgia, I think. It doesn't mean that we're right. We always look backwards and think, God, well, wasn't it nicer then? And, I would imagine if you were African American or gay or any number of things, the answer was no. So we are nostalgic for a time, but I'm not quite sure that it's factually correct.
You've said you now want to be the painter, not the paint. Can you explain what that means?
Well, directing's more fun. Again, the older you get, the roles change. And you have to accept that. You can't try and soften the lens and look younger, and as we all would like to.
Yeah, you're looking terrible, I have to say.
Somebody said to me the other day, how do you feel about turning 60? And it's like, well, there's no options except dead, so I'll take 60. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy having some control over. It's fun to be able to play with all of these different parts of the film industry. It's fun to be able to write and to direct and to. So that you're not just participating in one element of it.
I wonder, in terms of directing this particular film, directing Ben Affleck, who is Uncle Charlie, he's kind of the moral heart of this in many ways. Yeah. But, he's directed himself, and I just wonder, is that a slightly difficult relationship, directing somebody who is the director themselves? No,
not for Ben. Ben, first of all, we won an Oscar with Ben for Argo. We're friends, and he knew that this was a part that he hasn't been offered before. This is a better part than he's gotten. And so he knew it. So he showed up, just ready to do it. And honestly, we're friends, so it's easy. It doesn't take much direction. He's a good actor. It's a good part. The hard part for us was directing in COVID, because this is a family piece. Yeah. So, it would be like as if we're all of us, there's other people in the room besides Andrew and I right now. If we were all like doing a scene, we've all got masks and face masks and everything, and we rehearse, and then you go action, and we all whip it off, and suddenly all of us are a family. Yeah. It's unusual. It's not the same way we're used to working, but you have good actors and it works out.
And so this film is called The Tender Bar. And the assumption is basically that the best place for childcare is a bar full of elderly boozers.
Right. Well, I'm Irish, so I think that that's exactly right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I grew up in Kentucky, and I was a tobacco farmer, and I did a lot of stuff. And I also, my Uncle George, who I was named after, was a pretty good boozer, And he lived a lot of times on a horse track, a racetrack in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I would spend the summers working the racetrack. And I'd stay at his apartment, which was above a bar very similar to this. And I'd go down and, you know, buy him a pack of cigarettes, and, you know, all the same characters were in the bar. And so I grew up around that and understood it. And I have to say, I have a great fondness for that period of time.
You're a man you're a Democrat, but you're slightly to the left, as it were, in American politics.
Sure.
You're a friend of President Biden. You've known him for a long time.
Sure.
And looking at his poll numbers, which are really quite bad at the moment, things have gone wrong. What would you say about what's happened to the White House since he's taken over, and what's happened to America since he's taken over?
Well, I mean, it's, you know, you can't, it's like taking a battered child and thinking everything's going to be okay, and, you know, his first day in school. There's a lot of things that have to be repaired, you know. There's a lot of healing that has to happen, and it's going to take time. Poll numbers come up and go down. I would expect them to go back up again. You know, Donald Trump's numbers went up and down. He's
still there, prowling around
Sure.
in the rhododendrons.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he's going to be a factor for a while. It's so funny because, you know, he was just this knucklehead. I knew him before he was, you know, a president. He was just a guy who was chasing girls. You know, every time you went out, he'd come over and be like, "What's the name of that girl?" You know, that's all he was. And the idea that there's this whole group of people that, you know, that they think he's the champion of, which he certainly can't stand in real life. But, you know, he's gonna play this out for a while, and we'll see where we go with it as a country. My hope is we have a little better sense than to do that again. My hope.
We've talked about politics in the past and again today, and you're very fluent on this. At your age and stage, a lot of people are looking forward for the next big thing. Do you ever see yourself, like some other actors, going into politics?
No. No, because I actually would like to have a nice life. I turned 60 this year, you know, and I had a conversation with my wife, and I said, you know, we're working a lot, as we both do. And I said, we have to think of these as the halcyon years. You know, if we have our health, which we do, knock on wood for a minute, and I'm 60 and I can, you know, still play basketball and still do the things I love. But in 20 years, I'll be 80, and that's a real number. Doesn't matter how much you work out, doesn't matter how, you know, what you eat, you're 80. And so I said, we have to make sure we enjoy and live these years in the best possible way.
So coasting quietly into a period where you do almost nothing at all.
Exactly. Well, listen, instead of doing 3 jobs a year, I'll do 1. Because you can't, I mean, you, I think, must agree, even the slowing down and enjoying your life, not working would really be a bummer.
It really would. You're absolutely right about that. George Clooney, thanks very, very much indeed for talking to us.
It's always good to see you, man. Really good.